All right, guys. Really super sorry about how long it took. You may remember that last week we were supposed to go live as well, but because of technical issues, we had to do it on uh, what's it called? Um, Google Meet. But I stubbornly decided to go live this week, and we nearly had the same technical issues. Anyway, we're about 16 minutes late, so I'm going to jump right into it. Uh, if you're just following this uh, teaching for the first time, let me just give you a quick rundown. Uh, I'm doing a three-part starting and being successful at having a service business or becoming a service person, either by picking a skill that you can get good at, number one, and then offering that skill as a service, either as a freelancer, an agency owner, or as a an employee within an organization. So last week we went through the part one of this, uh, where I talked about essentially the three-part series. Is number one, um, the first part was to teach you what makes an organization tick. Those now that were not there when we did the class last week. So I talked about what makes, and also for revision for people that were on the class and probably missed a thing or two. So I talked about why people get stuck on picking a skill because almost everywhere now you hear the advice: pick a digital skill, learn a digital skill. Digital skills are the future. To learn this, you see good fit because you don't think you have what it takes, or because and then you never get anything done. So I say part of the reasons why, the major reasons why people don't get started and they get stuck in this discovery phase is, number one, they run from pressure. Where I talked about the fact that people want to ease into it. It's good to ease into it, but no matter how slowly you go, there's always going to be that point where you have to put yourself out there in the open and not feel of being out there and being trying something new. Like, for instance, I told my story. I studied agriculture in school, so of course when I'm pitching myself to people as a marketer, there's always going to be an ounce or a bit of imposter syndrome. But that pressure is what actually helps you to discover more about what you can do and your place in whatever field that you pick. Talked about the fact that you know people tend to not be hungry or desperate enough, and I talked about the fact that people don't know how to pay attention to their anger, because anything um around you or anything that you see in the world that gets you angry at the way it is being executed usually is a good indication at something that you may be interested in. You keep getting angry about how you're trying to look for a particular button, or this particular bank app is not you find yourself always complaining about how certain apps work or certain things doesn't work well. Maybe that's an indication that that might be a problem that you might want to solve. I also talked about the fact that people do not sit with their curiosity long enough. They're fascinated about the things around them, but they don't follow the curiosity long enough for them to get interested in uh, what births that thing that they're fascinated about. And then finally, on you know why I'm just going to check the chat. By the way, if you're watching live, I have an audience with me in the studio that gets to ask me questions at the end. Awesome, Mr. Lukman. All right. So, as I was saying, there's a live audience with me in the studio, a virtual studio that gets to ask me questions. If you'd like to be a part of that, I'll send you exactly I'll tell you the instructions on how to join that live audience at the end of this class. Anyway, so I the final thing I said about why people get stuck on picking a skill is um, you hear the dream, you hear people talk about designers get paid this much or software engineers get paid that much, and so on and so forth. But you have that dream life, you've heard about it, you hear people talking about it, but you're not at the place where you turn that fantasy or that dream life that you envision or you see other people talk about, you don't turn it into a necessity. When you're restless enough to turn your dream life into a dream life from a fantasy into a necessity, you start to live your dream life. Okay. Someone is telling me that my audio is low. Is that correct? Let me double check myself. Give me a second, guys. Let me switch. Class is about to start proper. I think I'm just going to skip. For the people in the in the virtual studio with me, can you let me know if you can hear me clearly or not? Someone is saying that it's not. One second. All right. All right. Ola says he can. Favor says so. I think Tim, I think it's from you. Increase your volume, bro. All right. I think, and then also I talked about Ikigai, my spin on it. I talked about the fact that Ikigai. I think the way that Ikigai is usually spoken about is number one, what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. And I said my spin on Ikigai when it comes to discovering a skill for you to learn and get good at and get paid for is number one, you can't trust what you love because what you love is dependent on the exposure that you've had in your life. If you grew up in an area where the person that seemed to be doing the best was a organizer or a farmer, you might fall in love with farming and think that is what all that it is. That means that you need to expose yourself more, following curiosity, like I said before, expose yourself more to new stuff, follow your curiosity, try to discover the things that birth the things that you're seeing around you. And I said number two, what you can find to love. Number two is what you're willing to be good at. What you're willing to be good at is also tied to you having a strong reason to be better at that thing. Um, Out of everything that you can find to love, there has to be something that you feel like, hey, this thing is, something that I'm so interested in that I would really like it if I am really good at this thing. And I talk about what the world needs and how most people only hear about buzzwords, UI, UX, cybersecurity, data science, all of that. And they don't really understand the place of that skill or that thing in the world. What does it, what around them, I've said this a couple of times in the stream already, what around you is as a result of that thing. If you can find something, if you can bring it from just a word or a skill that is just a tag or whatever into something that is real, that you can see how it changes people's lives or how it helps people move through their day better or do things better or whatever, then it stops just being you know, just a buzzword you saw on the internet or something that somebody on some YouTube video told you to go and learn. And it starts being something interesting enough for you to, want to learn more about. And then finally, I talked about what you can be paid well for. And I gave a simple formula to discover what makes people pay certain people a lot of money and certain people not as much money. I talked about time, energy, and money, time, energy, money, and attention. If you can help people to save time, save energy, save money, or make more money, and buy back their attention, they're going to pay you more for it. I think that's great on a recap. So let us go straight into um, part two. Favor, I can see that you're here again. This part two sort of answers what you asked me last week about, how to get good at skills. As you may have seen on the flyer, it is how to get good at any skill that you pick. Right. So let's get started. So first of all, the question is, why do you need to get good at any skill? Right. Everybody that I've ever, given pieces of advice, mentored, coached, or anything, I always tell them something. And what I tell them is that um, anything that it's a saying, anything that is worth doing well, right? Any skill that you pick, anything that you're doing, any service you're providing, you have to have it at the back of your mind that you want to get so good at it that you're probably top 10% in the world, right? Which now feeds back to what we're talking about today, which is how to get good at any skill you pick. I probably should have named it how to become the best at any skill you pick, because it is the best that gets hired. And I'll tell you why that is important, why you need to be the best at what you do. First of all, simple reality of the life that we live right now is such that, anybody that can describe their problem well enough, provide enough context, and give simple instructions as much as they can, and they have access to to the internet and any device, they can make use of an AI tool to get a pretty much decent result, an average or an above average result at almost anything right now. All it takes is for them to grab their phone, open an app, describe the problem, either by texting or you know, by even just using a voice command. And to some extent, they can get an okay enough result just to fly by. There was a day that I wasn't even trying. I don't remember what I was doing. I think it had to do with my workout plan. I just thought, hey, you know what? How about if I just wanted it to be like on a Google sheet, a spreadsheet, so that I can just search out something and then it will bring out my workout plan or something. And then I think I typed it in Claude, and Claude just, next thing I saw, so I typed it in Claude and I went into the next tab and I came back and I saw something that was weird. It looked like an app, right? And it just asked me to fill it in, fill what I want my query in or whatever, and then it spat out the results for me without even trying. I had built, I don't know what the technical people will call it, but from my end, that looked like a small app to do what I needed to do. What does that mean? If there is somebody that their biggest, skill level, the highest thing that they can do in that area is just building that thing, they no longer have a job, right? Now, you might argue that maybe you don't have the time to do it or whatever, but at least whatever volume of jobs, whatever volume of gigs was coming to them before will no longer be the same. Why? Because, you know, without even trying, I just built that thing, right? So, what am I saying? The fact that people have access to AI right now, it means that everything that is average and just above average, or even below average, of course, is just not worth it for people to pay you money for. Because if they have the time, they can sit down and do it by themselves. So the bar has increased drastically. If you're going to be the person that people would continue to pay at whatever you're doing, you have to bring your A game. And your A game has to be the A game, because you can bring your A game and it's still average. You understand? So, and also to answer a question that everybody's probably at, it's a tired question. Everybody's always asking this question: is AI coming for your job? Is AI coming for your job? I really don't like answering that question most of the time, but I'll answer it on this stream because, well, I'll answer it because you're my people here, right? I don't think AI is going to come for anybody's job, but it's going to come for people who stay stagnant. It's going to come for people that, their whatever their output is average. Whatever their output is what most people can do. The truth of the matter is, what AI really does is just bring out the most likely average response. You understand? So if your output is average, if your output is just like most other people, you know, you're not really special. And nobody's really going to pay you a lot of money for something they can type a prompt and have done. At the very least, they'll pay somebody that is cheaper and have them do it for them by typing in the prompts. The second reason why you have to take it seriously to become, the best at the skill that you are, um, at the skill that you're offering as a service is your competition is global now. At a point where I left working at an agency and I decided to go out on my own, within the first couple of months, I had already hired people from Kenya and a person from Kenya and another person from Argentina. If this was 10 years ago and I was starting that kind of thing, I would have to get to a certain skill before I even start thinking about hiring globally. But now, you know, just a couple of months into doing that business, I was already hiring globally. At the end of the day, I just needed somebody that could do it, and those were the people that I found for it. So that means the people that were in my city at that point in time, maybe one or two people could have gotten that thing that I had to hire outside the country for. It's not because those things are those people didn't exist or there aren't people that could do it, but those are the people that I can find. What does that mean for you? If you're good enough, right? If you're good enough, the people that need you would find you anywhere in the world. I'm going to tell you a story, a very inspiring story of one of my friends later on in the stream. So in this class, um, I don't know, when I speak of things like this, and even hearing myself speaking about it, I can sense that it might feel overwhelming because, especially if you're just starting out or you're about to switch into a new, switch your career path, you're about to switch into a new area of expertise, and I tell you that you need to be the best at what you do, you might start thinking about all those people that are at the top of their game and how awesome they are, and you might just start feeling overwhelmed and feel, and that's just unfair. Are you telling me that the only way I get paid is if I am the best at this? Yes and no, and I'll explain more as we go forward. But it is going to be difficult. It's going to be pretty hard. But if you follow this simple framework that I'm going to give you today, it kind of clears the path for you and it reduces anxiety. You're going to still have to work hard, right? But at least you know exactly what to work on, and you know what matters, right? So again, to reiterate, I said this in the first class. I said, let me tell you what this class is not going to be about. Yeah, I'm going to tell you how to get, the path you need to take in order to become the best at what you do at any skill that you pick. But this is not a class that I'm going to be telling you how to. I'm not making any promises on how to start earning X amount of money by 30 days or 90 days or whatever. That's not what this is about. Because I believe that anything that anybody can tell you, and if you start getting results in 30 days, it's not only because of what they told you, it's because of something you've been working on since. So some people might watch this, or some people might listen to me here, and then 30 days from now they start seeing results. 90 days from now, a week from now, it depends on what you've already been doing, right? So let's just get that sorted. Let's get expectations set. All right. So let's get into the meat of it. And of course, I'll start with my story. I like to start with my story because you have to know that I'm not just telling you this thing. It's not just something I picked up in a book or some textbook. This is my life and this is what I'm sharing with you. I told you at the beginning of this that I'm going to be reverse engineering what everything that I've learned over the past 5, 6 years being a service provider. So first of all, one thing that I've always noticed is the difference between a person that does average and a person that does things awesomely and grows fast is usually at starts in their mind, right? So I'm going to be telling you the things that shifted in my mind, um, the different shifts that I had to take that put me, pretty much at the top of my game, and to the extent that I started to attract, the right clients. I started to attract a lot of growth for myself in terms of, at the end of the day, if you grow well enough at what you do, you know, and you put yourself out there enough, people will find you. So the first mindset shift you need to have is you need to embody excellence, no matter how small. In the first class in this series, uh, just in case I keep saying first class and you're wondering what is this guy talking about, I'm going to post that first class in uh, on this YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube, so you can catch up. So embody excellence, no matter how small. I talked about how I got started in copywriting, and I think the last thing I talked about is, the first time somebody paid me to be a copywriter. I think I said he paid me 25K or whatever. Now, after being paid that, I talked about I talked about getting to that point, and then I think I stopped the story there. So what happened? He had I had volunteered to work for him to write copy for him for free, and the fact that it was for free, I did not treat it like it was for free. I sent him different variations of the same piece, the same ad. He gave me feedback, and I didn't take it to act like, most people would, like, you're telling me I'm not good enough or whatever. I went back to him, I gave him an improvement, and then a couple of months later, he reached out and he was willing to pay me for that service. And even that was not all smooth, right? He had some requests, some edits he needed me to do. He brought some people in that I really thought were not, in the place to give me feedback on my work. But you know, all of this, um, at the end of the day, it was not a pleasant experience getting started. And there was that pressure of somebody just paid me for this and I'm feeling like I'm not good enough. But one thing I always did is I always made sure that whatever I was told, whatever I was doing, I was coming back with a new version, a better version every time, as much as possible. And then, of course, that project was over. Month after month after month after month, I didn't get anything. So what did I do? I kept practicing, right? Like I mentioned, in the previous class, I kept practicing by myself. When I eventually had the opportunity to get hired into an international job, I remember that they gave me a test job to do. And then, I think they said you should do one of two test projects, right? And I went and decided I was going to do the two. You understand? I think I like to overdo. And one thing is, most people tend to not want to overdo for two reasons. Number one, they don't want to be taken for granted, which makes sense to some extent. Number two, they don't want to be seen as the person that overdoes because they don't want the other person to start expecting that every time. My question is, why don't you want people to expect you to always want to be better than other people? Do you know what that communicates to the right person? Of course, if you're doing it to certain people, they're not going to appreciate it, and you cannot, you can't dodge that. You get smarter at picking out those people as you go. But you know, if you make excellence and doing more than you're paid for an habit, you start to see growth one way or the other. So I did a test project for the agency. They brought me in, and now they're paying me, like 5 times of anything that anybody has ever paid me per month, right? That seems like a great story. That seems like the motivational story of I started my business with 2 cups of rice, but it wasn't rocky as well. It wasn't smooth as well. At a point, I was actually almost fired because they said, my output wasn't good enough. Why? You guys saw that my stuff, you looked at what I did, you said I was excellent. All of a sudden, why am I not good enough? Because as at the time I was practicing on my own, I was only writing maybe 1 or 2 ads per day. Now I'm in the middle of an agency. Now I have to pump out 10 ads every day. Of course, I was stretched thin. Of course, I needed to improve. But when they started giving me the feedback that everything wasn't up to par, I didn't take it again. I didn't take it to art. I didn't take it personal. Like, it is a personal attack on me. I knew I had to stretch. So sometimes I get up 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and I start working early. I start working extra. I start working on different variations, different styles. I'll do it and I'll cancel it. As a matter of fact, if you write, this probably helps. This might be a side tip for you. You write something, and then when you're writing anything, right, it's always going to look fascinating. You should come back to it later. You might start to see some gaps. Sometimes I'll see the gaps and I'll cancel it, I'll throw it away, and I'll come back and do it again. I just wanted to make sure that what I'm presenting was always the best output, right? And that is what has helped me on and on and on and on and on at every stage. Let me enter a little bit of a side note. If you're just starting out, you always tend to think that the things that you're facing right now is only because you're just starting out. Oh, this is so hard. It's probably easier for the people at the top. This story that I just told you just now, it's making me. It actually feels weird because I'm telling you a story about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 3. I don't remember. But while saying it just now, I realized that I'm in the same place right now because There's something else that I'm trying to pick up, something else that I'm trying to learn in order to become a better person at what I do. So embody excellence, no matter how small. Man, one person that is coming to my mind here is someone that I've worked with for a couple of years. This guy is just insane about, you know, making sure that whatever he puts out, think about it this way: if it's going to have your name on it, don't you want it to be something that no matter where they take it to, anybody that sees it will just be like, okay, this is good? Because that explanation that you want to tell everybody that that's the reason why it's not that good, it's not going to follow that thing. Wherever anybody's going to see what you do, it's not going to come with the explanation, it's not going to come with the excuse. Just make sure that the work speaks for itself. And I think that's the summary of this thing. Whatever work that you put out, make sure that it speaks for itself. If you don't commit to excellence, right, you're always going to remain small because you always have an excuse. Oh, there was this, not this. The clients didn't do this. The client didn't tell me this. Oh, things like this usually take too long and all of that. Commit to excellence, no matter how small. Make excellence be your trademark. The second shift, another important shift in your mindset that will help you, is don't count yourself out. Swim in the overwhelm. I'll tell you another story, right? I just told you about the agency I was working with. It was a Canadian agency. And then after a couple of months, I think the owner of the agency was like, yeah, he wants to. I don't even remember the reason he gave. It was a bad experience for me, so I try not to, uh, you know, remember it much. After grinding and making sure that I made sure my work was up to par, I was delivering for their clients and all of that. And then for some reason, it was more than me. They, because of their business model, I think they weren't getting paid. They were being paid based on certain things, and he just said he wasn't going to. Long story short, he said he wasn't running the agency again, even though I had. Let's not talk about that. Let me talk about it a little bit. I had done work for like a month ahead just to make sure that everything works well. And then now you're saying you're counseling everything. They still owed me money, but that's to the side. Anyway, so now I'm out of a job. And then I started to reminisce, like, okay, what was my experience like in the agency? And I remembered something. I didn't like being just the writer, right? I didn't like being just the writer because a lot of times they decided on the strategy and they just come and drop it in your lap. And sometimes it's frustrating. You write stuff and they will say the strategy has changed. I say, you know what? I want to be the person that is managing and is in charge of the strategy. To give you some context, the kind of clients that they work with, uh, that I now work with, are people that, I don't know what's the best way. They're $1 million e-commerce businesses, right? They're making hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars per month. And essentially, from what we do, you have a huge chunk of that thousands of dollars to contribute. They're expecting like 30 to 40% of your revenue to come from what you're doing. So this is me, random dude from West Africa, west side of Nigeria. And I'm saying, what, I want to be the guy that is responsible for this revenue channel. I want to be the one that they look to if they are not making up to the, I don't know, 40,000, 50,000, 100,000 that they're expecting to make from that channel. What do you think I felt? Of course, I felt overwhelmed because I'd never done anything like that before. So what did I do? I went to work. I remember that they gave us access to some courses, and I said, let me just at the very least, if I watch that course, right, even if nothing comes out of it, at least I have that knowledge. So I took the course. Then I started applying for gigs. I applied for the first gig. I looked like a total idiot on the call because the guy was asking me questions that I didn't even understand. I didn't have the context for, right? And then I went on the second interview. I remember, I think about the third or fourth interview was this Australian guy. This was like the most terrible one because the guy was just looking at me like, what is this one even saying? He's an Australian guy. He's I think he was selling jewelry or something like that. And then he asked me something about segmentation, which in retrospect, I must have looked really stupid with the kind of responses that I was giving. But one thing, and this is something I'd like to point out here, is number one, people are scared to look stupid. I understand. It's shameful. But most of those guys, if they see me, I do not even remember, right? But it's a tough thing to do, to constantly face rejection, number one. Number two, to look stupid. But here's what most people don't do, right? You don't document that process. What I did is when I get to the points where they ask me questions and I look quote unquote stupid, I write down whatever they ask me and I go back to the drawing board and I make sure that the next time that somebody asks me that question, I'm going to, I'm just checking the chat. Thank you. Thank you, Timmy. All right. Thanks for calling out the stuff. So I make sure that next time anybody's asking me that question, I don't look stupid again. So I was documenting the process. Most people they're too deep in their feelings. This thing didn't work out. It was embarrassing. I don't want to feel that again. So you're already feeling the pain of embarrassment. So that one that you've already felt, it has wasted now. You're already in. You already embarrassed yourself in front of one person. Why don't you keep going? Why don't you get something out of it? You're already in pain. Why don't you get something out of it? Right? So I think it was after, I don't know, I honestly don't know how many interviews I did or how many calls I did with people. The one I didn't even expect, I honestly just had my phone in my pocket. I had sent the proposal, and I didn't think anything of it. And I saw a notification. The guy got on the call, and he asked me pretty much all the questions that every other person had asked me, and I looked stupid at. And I had better questions this time, and then he gave me the job. Right, the next day I was to get started. Right, and now he's paying me times two of what the last agency was paying me. Right, but that's not the fun stuff. The fun stuff is now I am that life. I said it that you know the moment you get restless enough to make your dream life to make your dream life a necessity, it stops becoming a fantasy and you start living that dream life. So now I'm finally living that dream life, but the dream life is scary because now any mistake I make is costing people thousands of dollars. So I would have YouTube on one tab, and the tool we use is called Klaviyo, and Klaviyo on the other tab. I am watching a YouTube video on this side to make sure I don't mess things up on the other side. It was scary. It was overwhelming, but I didn't count myself out. You see, most people, once doubt starts to creep in, like the first thing they say is, this thing is not for people like me. You're right. It's not for people like you. You're the kind of person to be too scared to take risks. People say that a lot. Me too. I don't like when people say you're too scared to take risks. You're too dead. Leave me alone. I don't take risks. But the truth of the matter is, there are some risks that you can take. The kind of risks that you can take are when it comes to the kind of risk that you can always take is the kind of risk that you are certain. Is that the right way to say it? Any risk that pushes you to become a better version of yourself is a risk worth taking. You understand? Don't count yourself out. Don't run from overwhelm, right? Overwhelm is a signal that growth is about to happen. But once you open, overwhelm is how you create you are creating a sort of void, like you're pushing into a new territory, you're pushing into the unknown, you're pushing into outside of your comfort zone. The only thing that can fill up that all that empty space eventually is growth. You grow into it, and all of a sudden it's not like you're doing anything anymore. But most people don't get to that point, right? Most people don't get into that point. They don't get to that point. They just say, this is too difficult. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not everything that is difficult that you're supposed to do it. So I'm not saying that you just start looking for difficult things to do and you enjoy yourself. No. I'll give you another example, another experience of mine. I took a course that took me about 3 or 4 months. Um, it's one of the biggest, should I say, digital marketing institutes probably in the world, in my opinion. It's called CXL Institute. You can check it out. They had this course on growth marketing that I took, and to be honest, I finished it, but while doing it, I knew it just wasn't for me. It was a little too technical, and but I still stretched myself and I still completed it. Now, here's the second thing about jumping into overwhelm and not counting yourself out. While you're doing the thing that you know is not for you, if you press in long enough, if you press in hard enough, you'll find out the one that is for you. You find out something out of all of that chaos that just sort of gives you peace. That thing usually is a signal for what you're really good at. You understand? Because in that growth marketing course, they're talking about Google Tag Manager, they're talking about Google Analytics and all of that jazz. I don't really like that stuff, right? But the part that I liked when they're talking about strategy, they're talking about, uh, conversion rate optimization and all of that stuff. That just gave me peace. That just gave me joy to do. And that is what I do now. So Imagine if while taking that course, I just said, you know what, this is not for me. Bye bye. Toof. And I left. I would not discover that little part of me, that little part that is for me. And then finally, right, the final mindset shift that you need to embrace if you're going to be the best at what you do is to understand that there's a new reality of work. Now, this one, I'm not going to tell you a story. I'm just going to tell you something that I noticed a couple of days ago. I'm not sure we have the feature to share my screen. I wish I could. Let me see. Can we share screen? Not sure. I would have shown you what I saw. So there's somebody I follow. He's one of the biggest guys in the game of like e-commerce, DTC, and all of that. And he posted a gig, something that one of his friends was looking for, and I just went to check it out. It was pretty exciting, super high level gig. The pay that they were announcing there was about $8,000 to $12,000 monthly, right? So you can say it's pretty high paying, right? And I went through that thing um, from top to bottom because I like out of curiosity what I was also telling you guys. Out of curiosity, I was wondering, hey, what is it that makes people want to pay somebody like this? And you know one thing I did not find? I didn't find a certificate that was required. I didn't find you need to be certified at this or certified at that. Do not get me wrong. I'm not saying that certificates are not useful, right? Certain certificates would get you consideration, but what gets you, it will get your foot, is it your foot in the room or your foot in the door? But what keeps you there is what you can do, what you can prove you can do. Business owners don't want papers anymore. They want proof that you can solve problems. Business owners don't want proof and they don't want papers anymore. They want proof that you can solve problems, right? If you can show that you can do it, you can even better if you can show that you've done it before, right? They are going to want to get you. They are going to want to hire you, right? The person that can communicate that they are good at what they do, the person that knows that they're good at what they do, they know what they're doing, they know how good they are, they know how to communicate how good they are, and they know how to communicate to the people that need it, the impacts that this thing that they are good at would help in their business. Those are the people that get hired. Quick summary, right? Mindset shifts. Number one, embody excellence no matter how small. Excellence is like a secret cheat code for growth. As long as your work gets increasingly better every day and every time, you would find yourself attracting better and better people. And I promise you guys a quick story about that. I'm not sure I'll be able to touch on it later, so I'm just going to say it. Right. So this guy, he's a designer. He's probably watching this right now, watching it later. We started working together. And one thing I've noticed about this guy is no matter where he works on, right, whatever he works on, they don't ever want him to just work on that thing. So he's working on one very specific kind of design. And now they're bringing him onto arts, they're bringing him to this, they're bringing him onto that. Why? Because that part that they gave him, he's already excellent at it. You understand? And then he's working with another agency. That agency says, you know what, we want to promote you. And then, he starts working with a different brand. And those people are like, you know what, we want to bring you on full time. And if I tell you how much that guy makes per month now, you'll be surprised. When we calculated, last time we calculated, in the last 3 years, his income has like up to, is it 27 times more or 28 times or maybe even 30 something times. So which means you can do the math in your head, right? Do the math in your head. I'm not going to do the math. And what is the trick? What is the only thing he's doing? This guy is not, he's not posting on social media every day. It's not whatever. It's not, he's excellent at what he does. So any time that he gets his foot in the room, they don't want him to leave. All right. We talked about excellence. I said, don't count yourself out. Always swim in the overwhelm and understand that finally, businesses don't want papers. They want proof that you can solve problems. All right. All right. Thank you, Adiwale. It's tough to take an honest feedback, but very necessary for growth. Awesome. All right. In order to move quickly, right, and become the best at the skill that you pick, there are 4 stages of skill developments that you need to go through. And I'm going to run you through them real quick. We started a little late, and I was hoping to end this by 9. So we'll probably run a little over it, over 9 o'clock, and then I'll take questions. Four stages of skill development. Number one is called unconscious incompetence, right? This is the point where you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. So what do you do at this stage? It is a strategy. Your strategy here is the research and document. Research and document is the research and document phase. See, it is difficult. How do I put it? What's the best way for me to say this? For you to become the best at what you do, at whatever you're doing, you're essentially signing up to being a different person, right? You're essentially signing up to be becoming a different person. So to some extent, what you're doing when you're researching whatever it is you're researching is you're trying to create a new character sort of in your head. So you have to check who is doing it, why are they doing it, what's required to do it, what are the what's it called? What are the tools that they use? How do you master those tools? What kind of jobs are available? What kind of gigs are available? Who's hiring for this kind of stuff? You don't know what you don't know. So you absorb everything. Some of it will make sense, some of this it will not make sense. So what I said is research and document. Most people don't know how to document, right? You just anytime that maybe I don't know, you just think about your life that much, and so my life could be. This is how my life is always going to be. Just enter YouTube like what are the top 10 skills to learn in 2025, and then you get the list and you leave that, go and do something else, right? What did you document? Do you have somewhere that you're putting all the information that you've picked, so you can come back to it later and go deeper? Most people don't do that. And then that's why you keep asking the same questions everywhere. You keep going back to the same YouTube videos. And you're not really growing because you're not documenting and you're not asking the right questions. You're asking the same one question: which skill can get you money? Everything, any skill can get you money. It depends on how good you are and what you're working with. So that's the unconscious incompetence phase. You don't know what you don't know. So you're just soaking everything. The second one is where most people stop. It's called the conscious incompetence. So there are four stages to this, right? I just talked about unconscious incompetence, now conscious incompetence. Now you realize what you don't know. And this is where overwhelm hits. Is that point that you now start, let's say you pick up a course or somebody starts to tell you the rudiments of that thing, and you're like, man, this is everything I'm going to do. This is where most people drop off. I can't count how many people will come and tell me, hey, I want to learn email marketing. Hey, I want to do this. Then I show them the back end, do, then they run. Right? Why do people run? Because they, back to what I said about the mindset shift. Don't count yourself out. Swim in the overwhelm. The people that don't take themselves so seriously enough to want to just dabble into something and see if it can work for them are the people that end up being very good at it, right? And the only way you can get through this is a simple thing I like to call: you have to get there before you get there. Everything around you is going to make you feel like you're not good enough. You're going to feel incapable. You're going to feel inadequate. But you have to get there before you get there. You start to see yourself as that thing before you become that thing. And there are two ways to grow past this place. What you need here, the strategy here is practice, right? The strategy for unconscious incompetence is research and document. The strategy for conscious incompetence, which is where you start to realize what you don't know, is practice. Now, the reason why people don't get through this through the practice phase is because they're waiting for permission. So this is the cycle. Nobody's going to hire you because you're not good enough, right? And you don't have a track record. And you need a track record to get a job. So nobody's going to hire you. So now you want to get a job and now you're looking for track record, but nobody's going to hire you because you don't have a track record. So how do you build that track record? You do a little something called permissionless practice. Man, create scenarios in your head. I know nowadays you don't even. When I started copywriting, I would just look at a business. I could be on bike going somewhere and I see a business with their billboard or with whatever. And I just be like, okay, imagine if I'm doing this for this business. What's the social media going to look like? What are the ads going to look like? You understand? The way it is right now is such that you can go to AI and say, okay, this is what I do. This is what I'm trying to do. Create a scenario, a problem that needs to be solved based on this and this, and then you go and solve it. Create scenarios. And why are you creating scenarios, right? Um, so here's the thing. Before anybody hires you, they just want to understand that you get it. Like they don't have to be explaining simple concepts to you. And when they're asking you questions and you are speaking like somebody that has solved problems before, they are not going to know that the problems that you solved were made up scenarios, because those feel real to you. You thought through the process, you thought through the problem, you thought through the solution, you thought through the implementation, right? So you create scenarios for yourself and you solve the problems ahead. That is the only way to get through this. That is the number one way to get through this. You can wait to get to be lucky enough for somebody to hire you before you now start to practice and then you learn on the job, or you can start practicing without permission. Stage three, conscious competence, right? Competence is now you know, at least you're able to perform whatever it is that you're supposed to perform. You're able to perform whatever is you're supposed to, you're able to perform. At this point, you may not even have a gig yet, or you may have a gig. So what is the strategy for this point? You've passed the you don't know what you don't know phase. You've passed the you know you know what you don't know phase. Now you're at the point where you know most of what you need to know, right? What is the strategy here? Now you have to move away from theory. Now you have to build a portfolio. You have to show proof of work. And how do you do it? Again, even if you don't have a project yet, you don't have somebody that has hired you before already, you don't have anybody that has hired you, you can still you can volunteer for stuff, right? Even though I didn't later build a career out of this, there was a time when I think it was just one midnight, I was on Twitter, right? And then I think what the guy needed was, what did he need? Yeah, he needed somebody to repurpose his podcasts into, I think, blog posts or whatever. And I was like, well, is that what you need? I'll just listen to podcasts and I'll just go and repurpose this into a blog. That's cool. Sign me up. And I DM'd him. I said I can do it. No, I left a comment on the post where it was saying he needed somebody for it. And I said, hey, I can do it. And then he DM'd me, and then I responded to him, and then he asked me something. I think he asked if I've done it before. And I said, again, like I said, business, he didn't ask me certificate or whatever. And you might think somebody might need certification in whatever you're thinking to do stuff like that, but you just needed show me that you've done it before. Why do people want you to show proof of work? So that they don't have to be explaining to you, so that they don't have to train you. They might train you to be better, but they're not going to train you to do the rudiments, right? And I told him, yeah, okay, you know what, let me just, I didn't tell him I've never done it before. I just went and did one with one of his podcasts, permissionless practice. I went and did one with one of his podcasts. I brought it to him. He didn't even respond to me, right? And then on that same post, there was a second guy that said, okay, you know what, I need this thing done. And I DM'd that guy. And I was like, the guy was like, hey, show me some of it, the stuff you've done like this before. Then I showed him what the first guy didn't respond to, right? And he didn't respond to me again. Number two. Then the third guy also commented on that same post. And I DM'd the guy, hey, I can do this stuff. And I was like, okay, show me what you've done before. So the second guy, what I did was, for the second guy, I went to do permissionless practice again. I went to do one for him without him paying me. So now I had two things to show the third guy. I showed the third guy from what I had done for those other two guys. I was like, okay, cool, that's interesting. And he hired me to do it. You understand? Of course, that wasn't something I was building. At that point in time, I was pretty much just doing anything that puts bucks in my pocket. But if that was something I was going to be building a career on per se, I am going to, that was a way to build a portfolio, what have you. And I've done this thing recently too. I recently offered somebody free work, somebody that, I know was already paying me for something else. And and like I said, I'm also in a position where I'm trying to move to a different level. I offered him free work, right? It used part of it, it didn't use part of it. But guess what? I'm already building portfolio for the next level. And the final stage, right, of skill development is called the unconscious competence, right? This is the point of mastery. This is when the skill becomes, second nature. You're not even thinking about it, you're just executing. But here's the scary part. Here's the scary part, right? Give me a second. I'm seeing a comment in the virtual studio, like I said. All right. Okay. I'm just going to reiterate here that beyond you guys that are watching on YouTube or on Facebook, there is a virtual studio where certain people are going to be able to ask me questions. So if you want to be a part of that, you're going to have to, you're going to wait till the end of this when I'm going to give instructions on how to join. All right, let me just quickly respond to something. Okay, unconscious competence, right? The final stage. Now you're the you're a master at what you're doing, but the danger here is stagnation, right? The strategy for this is specialize and integrate. All I saying conscious competence is the most scary part for me. Interesting. We can discuss that. You should tell me why. Why is that? Why is that something that is scary for you? What makes it scary? Voila. Anyway, so at unconscious competence level, the gig here is for you to specialize, right? And I think I've said it a couple times in this stream. There's a cycle that most people at the beginning don't see. You tend to see everybody that is far ahead, like those ones have it figured out. But every time at every stage, you sort of have to start from scratch at a certain level. But your scratch is not really a scratch per se, it's just you've built a foundation and now you have to build on top of it. No matter how far you climb or how fast you climb, there's going to be a level where you just feel like, okay, you know what, there's more and I need to do more. And that part is usually scary, and that part is always going to feel like you're starting all over again. So when you get to a certain level that you've mastered that one thing that you're doing, you're going to have to specialize or integrate. Integration is like for instance, it's what I did, right? Integration is what I did. I used to be just a writer. I just write stuff for people. I write ads for people. Then I decided to integrate and add strategy to it. So now I have a more complete package for to offer everybody else. So I'll round this up by saying, what is a practical action step after putting all this together, after telling you the mindset shift, right? After telling you why this is important, why you need to be the best at what you do, why you need to get really good at what you do, the age of AI and the fact that average work, just having out almost anybody that has an internet connection and pretty much enough will and time can bring out anything that is average with using AI. So you can't be the person bringing average workout. The people that give out average work are the ones that AI takes their job. The second thing is global competition. People hire from anywhere and everywhere. People have hired me from Romania, Australia, USA, UK, and whatever. There are people that do this stuff over there, but they're hiring me. Same way that I have also hired people from different parts of the world. I had from Kenya, I've hired from Argentina, I've hired from India, etc. Right? I talk about mindset shifts, embodying excellence, don't count yourself out, understand the new reality of work. And I've ran you through the 4 stages of skill development. So what is the practical thing, Samuel? Because you said all these things, all these sweet, sweet stuff that you're talking. What should I do tomorrow? Number one, research. Research like your life depends on it. I still do this. It's sad to me that I give this advice every time and very few people actually take it because very people are lazy to do research. People just want the answers on a platter. Most people came to this class expecting me to tell them, oh yeah, to give them a prescription. Uh, Carry your laptop, slam it on your head 3 times, turn around it, and I don't know what they are expecting. The work is you can't skip the work. You have to do the research. You have to understand the skill that you're trying to learn. You have to understand the people at the top of their game of what you're doing and what they're doing and why it is important. Who is doing it? Who else is doing it? Let me tell you one cheat code. Every time that I want to scale up, every time that I want to um, start playing at a different level, what do? I go to LinkedIn, I go to different job boards, and I go and check for job descriptions. I check for the skills that people talk about. Check for the experience that people say they need, and I check for the tools that people say that um, are the requirements. And then essentially, I just take that as my learning path. That might be all you need. That might be all you need. That might blow out all your excuses about what I don't know what to I don't know what to check next. I don't know what to uh I don't know what to study next. I don't know where to learn next. Go and check a job description. By the time you start reading job descriptions every day, read like 10. By the time you start read several job descriptions, you start to see a pattern of what is important and what is not important. Some people keep stacking projects. Some people are complaining that there are no projects. Some people are complaining that there are no jobs. Some people are not even just getting hired by people around them. Some people are getting hired from people that are all the way across the world. Why? Because they know how to find what is important and align with it. Sometimes it's not you. I recently gave one of my mentees a piece of advice. I said, sometimes not even about how good you are. I know this class is about getting good, but it shall get good first so that they know you don't want to cancel you. Sometimes it's not about how good you are. It's about how aligned you are with what people really want. You understand? You can be the best and the best creative writer, but if you're not writing the way that matters to what, like in my line of work, which is conversions and sales, if your writing is super creative and makes people cry, I can't believe it is so beautiful, and it brings them $0 or zero sales, nobody cares about that. Clap for you, Chimamanda. But that's not what we're doing here. We need sales, right? So you need to find out what matters. So you're not just working hard for nothing. Practice. I've said this one several times, and I'm not going to, you know, dwell on it. Permissionless. There are two ways. There's permission practice and there's permissionless practice. Permissionless practice. Nobody you is you that are playing on your own. Take it serious. Take it like a joke. Take it. When I was practicing copywriting, at a point I used to make sure that I must write something, some sort of copy every day. Practice like you have to get there before you get there. Act like you have a job in it. Give yourself projects and do it. There's somebody, don't know if he has joined what's it called, this stream today, but I'm going to name drop. Damola, awesome guy. I see his stuff on social media every day. He's doing the weirdest and the most funny what's it called, passion projects. I don't know what he's paying him for that stuff, but it's exciting, right? He's just, you know, just showing what he can do by doing more of it. And he's not somebody that is just a total newbie. He's already to some level at the top of his game. He's doing really well, but he's still practicing. But you that is just getting started, you're waiting for somebody to come and hire you so that you can learn on the job. It's not working like that. So research, practice, build a portfolio by documenting every attempt. Success or failure, no matter what it is, documents, 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 documents. This is what I've done, and this is what I've done, and this is what I've done. At a point in time, for me, my portfolio was just full of practice projects that I had just told myself that I'm going to do, right? I just pick a project, I just picked a product, and I was just working on it. And finally, specialize at the right time. After working, oh, this is let me quickly deal with one major issue that most people have when they're getting started. When they start listening to all the gurus and everything on the internet. Yeah, me, I want to only work with this kind of people. I'm specializing on this niche. If you're just getting started, that might not be the best advice, right? The best advice, in my opinion, that I've heard around this is by a guy called J.K. Molina. He said, get the job done, take different types of projects, right? After you've taken several projects, look at the patterns or the ones that are most similar, right? Essentially, what he's saying is let the niche build itself around you. Don't go and niche yourself and limit yourself. So let's say you are a man. I don't want to start. I took some fire because I was mentioning cybersecurity a lot last class. Let's say you're a data analyst, right? Not data analyst again. I don't know, man. Let's say you're a designer. Hmm? I didn't get any hits for this mentioning designers last week. Let's say you're a designer. I have been working for, you've taken several projects, and then you look back and you see that there's a lot of fintech stuff in your portfolio. It makes sense for you to niche, to choose that as the niche. You've allowed the niche to build around you. Hey, I'm seeing a lot of stuff in the chat. Hope I'm not. All right. Thank you, Joshua. Thank you, Joshua. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm just at the end uh, of what I plan to open your eyes to today. I talked about the mindset, the stages to follow, and some action points. On the next class, I'm going to be telling you about how to multiply, multiply, sorry, how to monetize and multiply your skill into multiple income streams. So you've chosen a path, right? You've chosen a skill you want to get good at. You have committed that you want to get good at the skill, and you have learned now how to get good at that skill. So now I'm going to teach you in the third class next week how to monetize and make sure that you're earning multiple streams of income from that one skill. Now, let me check what we're doing in the chat, right? Is there anybody that wants to ask any questions or anything like that? Let me check the in-house studio before checking on YouTube. Joshua. Okay. Or what? Why is there no video on YouTube? Is it just me or there's no video on YouTube? Okay, there's video on YouTube. All right. All right, guys. I don't know if there's any questions that anybody wants to ask right now. I'll be looking at the chat. Uh 1 second, checking. All right. Thank you. Looking forward to the next class of strategy specializers. All right. Thank you, Joshua. Hmm. All right, guys. The floor is open for questions. If there are no questions, this is already running pretty late. I would just, end the stream, and then, we can talk on the next one. But just in case you want to be a part of you promised to answer the questions from last week today. I did. Oh, yes. Let me check. Let me ask Tim. I think Tim put together some questions. Give me a second. Okay. All right. Since I'm not seeing any questions, or am I certain? Let me make sure. If you'd like to, be a part of the virtual audience, we are not asking any questions this week, but if you like to be, if you have questions and you'd like to ask the questions and you want me to address them, please feel free. Okay, what platforms do you use to get international gigs? What's your experience with LinkedIn? Platforms to get international gigs. Okay, Mr. Adewale Ayo. Platforms to get international gigs. Most of the time, the platform I usually get gigs from is Upwork, but that is not the only time. So, well, it is the easiest in my opinion, but I know people do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, etc. I don't want to go into that spiral about Upwork or no Upwork or whatever, because I think people get too stuck on platforms like it is an app, and they don't actually think about See, you can get. Let me put it this way. What's the difference between a person that is just getting $20, $30, $50 gigs on Upwork and a person that's getting thousands of dollars? It is this stuff that I'm telling you, honestly. If you're just there with an hustler mindset, if you're just there with as somebody that is stuck in the conscious incompetence, or what's that stage? Conscious incompetence. You don't know. You're not practicing. You're not getting better. You're not the best at what you do. You're going to struggle. You're going to be part of the bottom barrel of people that are just hustling for gigs everywhere and everywhere and everywhere. Personally, one of my most recent gigs on Upwork, I wasn't even trying to get it. Matter of fact, I was actively trying not to get the clients to hire me, and he still hired me. Why? Because of the excellence of what I do, because of the value I can create, communicate, and because of the track record I can show. Right? So don't get stuck on platform. If you get on a platform, there are a lot of people, most people that tell me that hey, they're on Upwork, is not working for them. It's because of this stuff that they don't know, right? They have the hustler mentality. They're not trying to build a career. They're not trying to be awesome at what they do, and they're not able to communicate how great they are, what they do. And some people are just average, right? They're not trying to be the best at what they're doing. All right, guys. If there are no other questions, that would be it for this week. See you on. Oh yeah, I said I wanted to tell you how to join the inner circle that can ask me questions. The way to join is to please message Tim at 08153186547. Let me see if I can put that on the screen. 081. I I I, I haven't figured out how to put it on the screen, but just go 08153186547. I'll try as much as possible to you know maybe put it in the show notes in the description of this video. Uh, and maybe you can pick it up from there. So if you chat with him, just let him know you like to be part of their virtual studio and ask questions like other people are, and that would be awesome. Until next time, have a great day. Have a great rest of your day, and